Good morning and welcome to our daily reflection. Today is the day that we remember the Magi who travelled to worship the expected king. Now, well, we all know the story of the wise men, but because there were three gifts, it's always assumed there were three of them. Assumed because the Bible doesn't tell us how many actually travelled. The reading is from the Gospel of Matthew chapter 2. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, "Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star, and when it rose we have come to worship him." When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. When he had called together all the people's chief priests, teachers of the law, he asked them where was the Messiah to be born. "In Bethlehem in Judea," they replied, "for this is what the prophet had written. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means the least among the rulers of Judah. From out of you will come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod called the Magi secretly and found out from them the exact time the star had appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go and search carefully for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me so that I may go and worship him." After they heard from the king, they went on their way, and the star they had seen when it rose went ahead of them, until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed and worshipped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route. This is the word of the Lord. There's a story of a fourth wise man. His name was Artaban. And the Magi were all in touch with one another, and through their studies of the heavens had been expecting the appearance of a new star in the east, signifying the birth of a great new prince. They decided that when the star appeared, they should all set off for an agreed meeting point, and from there they would all travel on together to visit the new king and pay homage to him. All were to take gifts. Artaban had sold everything he owned and put his money into 3 jewels, a sapphire, a ruby, and a pearl. In due course the star appeared. Unlike the others, Artaban set out for the rendezvous, but on the way he came across a sick man by the roadside. Being a doctor, he could not pass on the other side. Instead, he stopped to help, and that delayed him. So when Artaban reached the meeting place, he found that the others had already gone on without him. Determined to catch up, he sold the sapphire to buy a train of fast camels to carry him quickly across the desert. Sadly, he was too late. On reaching Bethlehem, he found the town in uproar. Mary and Joseph with Jesus had fled to Egypt because King Herod had given the order that all boys under the age of 2 were to be killed to get rid of this new prince, about which the other wise men had informed him. Artaban was an eyewitness to the massacre. Coming across a group of soldiers about to tear a small boy from his mother's arms, Artaban hurried to stop them, agreeing to let the mother and child go in return for the ruby. And so he journeyed on, came across a group of people who discovered were outcasts, among them lepers who had been banned from the city of Jerusalem. As a doctor, he couldn't leave them, but one day stretched into a week, and a week into a month, and a month into a year, until the years piled up, and he ceased his search. But he kept a pearl in his pouch, just in case. One day, another Magi from Persia found the camp. He was travelling to Jerusalem with his daughter, and brought news of the death of Artaban's father, and tried to encourage him to return to his homeland. He refused because by now this was his home after 30 years. Not long after, stories started to circulate in the camp about a prophet who had the power of God to heal people, who was in Jerusalem. A young blind man who lived in the camp had gone to see if the stories were true, desperate to be touched by this prophet. Unable to get near Jesus, he hurried back to the camp and told him what he had heard. Artaban, elated at last, his journey appeared to be over, but in ill health, he made the journey to Jerusalem anyway with his pearl. As he arrived in the city, he discovered that Jesus had been arrested and was to be crucified. The Magi reasoned that with the pearl he could buy Jesus his freedom, so off he went for the palace. But along the way, he met another tragedy. The business his fellow Magi from Persia had come to start had failed. He had been killed, and his daughter was being sold into slavery to pay his debts. He had nothing left but the pearl, and while it hurt him to do so, he offered the pearl as payment for his friend's debt, so the daughter could go free. But by now Jesus was dead. He was too late. Heading back, mourning and grieving for the lost opportunity and broken-hearted beyond measure, his already ailing heart began to fail, and he stopped his journey to rest. While another went to get him some water, another stood in front of him, out of nowhere. Jesus immediately knew this was Jesus. "Saviour, I've looked for you so long, and now you're here. I have nothing to give you. The precious stones I have bought for you are gone. I have nothing." Jesus looked at him and said, "My son, you gave me everything. When I was thirsty, you gave me a drink. When I was sick, you healed me. When I was homeless, you took me into your home." Magi was puzzled. "But Lord, I have never seen you before. When did I do those things for you?" Jesus reached out, touched the Magi who lay dying before him, and said, "Whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." And then he was gone. For a moment longer, the Magi looked at the place where Jesus had stood, closed his eyes, and died, fully aware that those 33 years had not been in vain, fully aware that he had served Jesus, and now finally at peace. He was buried back at the camp that had been his home for so long. Instead of a prayer, I want to leave you with the thought that if we are to be followers of Jesus, then in our own small way we have to be like Artaban. Following Christ can be costly. We may not have sapphires, rubies or pearls, but because everywhere we turn, we meet or see people in need. Need is all around us. There's always someone who needs something from us, whether that be a visit, a listening ear, or a little understanding, maybe a hug or just a greeting with a smile. So whatever you do this coming week, do it with a smile. Bye for now.